Good morning from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's 11:47 a.m. on Tuesday, the 24th of February 2026. It's another hot morning and struggling a bit with my lungs. They were a bit awry yesterday. I had a very short walk just to drop off a bag of limes to my friend Avril, who lives on the corner of Cavendish Road and Sapphire Street. And I was so out of breath by the time I got to her place, which is only about a third of the distance I normally walk around the block. So I weighed myself this morning, 95.5 kilos. I've gained 5.5 kilos. And actually, to be fair, apart from indulging in a bit too much chocolate in recent months, I guess that's probably tipped it over the edge. But I shouldn't have gained that much. I really should not have. So it's not good because it's putting pressure on my lungs and no doubt my heart and other organs. So I'm going to have to shed that excess padding. My Boadicea and armouring needs to be released. So I'm saying it out loud on my YouTube channel for all the world to see, because I'm telling myself off and I'm reprogramming my brain. It's got to go. It's got to go. All that excess weight. I put on weight usually when I'm stressed or under psychic attack, so it tells me I have to maintain the spiritual hygiene of saying psalms each morning and at night, possibly 3 to 5 times a day if I remember. I need to walk more. I need to resume my dancing, so expect some crazy videos of me dancing and moshing, because I've really done some major potential harm to myself in such, fairly rapid weight gain, really, only in the past 3 months. Oh well, it's a grief response, isn't it, to all my closest friends fucking vamoosing and leaving me feeling bereft. But I can't remember if I put on a lot of weight when Beauregard died or when Charlie died. So it's also probably got a lot to do with the fact that I'm 60 now and the metabolism slows right down. But it's also, I've been sitting sedentarily, reading news stories and actually not doing enough exercise. That's what it will be too. But to be fair, I get so tired after making each video. I'm absolutely wrung out. Sometimes I have to have a little lie down. So I've known for a while that my energy's depleted. And it's frustrating. Just going to go and get my Ventolin. I'm a bit short of breath. I can actually hear a bit of a wheeze, so it's I'm not imagining it that my lungs are a bit tickety-boo. But anyway, on we go and on we go. Every day and every way is a miracle and a triumphant return of the Queen from the abyss. So, what can I say? Staying alive, people of Earth. Right, so let us begin. Because I do enjoy reading, even though it depletes me and I get exhausted. Don't get me wrong. If I didn't enjoy, making these videos for you, I wouldn't be doing it. I'd be doing something else. If I had more money and could afford my silver, I'd be silversmithing, or I'd be weaving, or I'd be, tapestry weaving, which is going to be my next journey. I have to get back into that. I've decided I've made all that lovely wool, hand spun wool, so now I need to put it to use. But anyway, it's been intense. I had a very intense and vivid dream which I wrote about on my Instagram, and I posted it to Instagram, but I always write each morning if I have interesting dreams or interesting insights. I write it on my Facebook status. So yes, very, very interesting, that one. It was about, I don't want to discuss it on this video. For some reason I don't want to discuss it. But it was about, the theme of it was about meeting an old flame and being all excited and frantic, and in true Tanya style, I've been known to do this in real life. My friend Jared used to call me home maintenance maniac, because it would kick in round about 10 o'clock at night. I'll just start randomly screwing pictures to the wall or fixing little odd jobs, and it'll kick in like astonishingly weird times of the night. So in the dream, I'm frantically trying to glue wallpaper onto the back of my kitchen bench while I was awaiting the impending arrival of a former love interest. Won't name names because they freak out that I dream of him, but it's not my fault. It's not my fault. He appears to me in my dreams. It's not his fault either. It's just my subconscious of vomiting out grief and rage and pain and what have you. But in the dream, I was so excited, so very excited, that I was frantically trying to make this little, like a batch, like a tiny one-roomed, almost like a hobbit hole, trying to make it nice for when he arrived. And he was coming on the way to go to the airport, so he was actually coming to say goodbye to me. That was what I was told in the dream. And I'm slapping on wallpaper glue and slapping on wallpaper, and it's all peeling back, and then I look around and the kitchen net curtains were mouldy and there were dishes and everything was in complete disarray, and I'm panicking in the dream. I had all the emotions of panic disorder. It was very real to life, actually, how I've kind of felt in recent days. Anyway, and then the lover, or the wannabe lover, or the former lover, I don't even know how you would frame that actually, arrives in this big red, really long, like a limousine, big red vehicle, parks it out the front, and then I've rushed upstairs. So the dream was a blend of my kitchen now and a batch that we actually did have in my childhood home. But in the dream, the batch looked like it was made and carved out of like a hobbit hole out of a tree. So the wannabe lover or former love interest, what have you, because we weren't lovers in real life, that's for sure, made sure of that. Wasn't going to get used and abused by someone false. I sort of picked up a vibe that things weren't quite kosher there, Anyway, in the dream, he's so happy and excited to see me, and I'm so happy and excited to see him, and there was genuine love and joy and excitement to be together. And he's in real life had never been to my home, and in the dream he'd never been to my home before. So he puts his finger into what looked like, the lock of the door. There was like kind of a hole puts this, that's very, well, I'm thinking about it now, that's kind of, it's sexual illusion, isn't it? Poking your finger into a hole, but not my hole, biz. But anyway, he pokes his finger into the hole, and I'm standing beside him waiting for him to open the door, which was weird because he's my guest. Wouldn't I open the door for him? And as he pokes his finger, I try to stop him, but it's too late because I see a red-backed spider, and it bites him right where my arthritic joint is here, bites him on his finger, and he yelps in pain and jumps back and looks at me, and he said, "The one time I come to your home, Tanya, and you poisoned me with a red-backed spider bite." And I went, "Well, I didn't do it. I don't want you to be stung. I tried to warn you, but it was too late." And and then I kind of woke up because, oh, that's right, in the dream I had a gift for him. I think it was a book, and that's how it came about that he'd come to my home. Anyway, so I'm freaking out about him potentially dying from a red-backed spider bite, which can be lethal. And he's looking at me and he said, "And here I am, holding his finger up. I'm about to board a plane, and now I could potentially die. And if I go to the hospital, I'll miss my flight." And then he looks at me lovingly and he says, "What a way to catch a man, Tanya." That was the funny part of the dream. But then I woke up and I was actually panicking, still with the panic in the dream, going, how does that end? Does he die? Does he take the plane? Does he stay with me? How does that even end? But I looked around the batch, the small room, and it did indeed look like it was carved out of the inside of a tree. And I'm looking around going, I didn't realise I'm living inside a tree. So there was kind of that safety and feeling of innocence and being safe inside the bole of a tree, a bit like being in a womb in a way. So there was that kind of imagery. And the man coming to say goodbye to me, being bitten, stung, bitten by the red-backed spider. And in the dream they showed me distinctly it was a red-backed spider, the beautiful bright red stripe along its shiny black abdomen. And I was like looking at it going, I didn't even know that was there. How could that possibly be there? Why in the door handle where you put your finger? And I'm looking around and the wallpaper's peeling off the back of the kitchen bench. I actually looked at the back of my kitchen bench when I got up this morning, and I thought, you know what? It's not such a crazy idea. Perhaps I should wallpaper it, brighten up the kitchen a bit. It's so old and should really be renovated. It's shitty, but so much work, and it might just peel off just like in the dream. So anyway, you have to laugh. That was my mind this morning, taking me on journeys, and my former friend, beloved one, being attacked by a spider. So I wrote this morning, I said, spider represents grandmother spider, the weaver of fate. I put a nice little Greek mythological spin on it, because what else can you do with my defragmenting 95.5 kilogram hobbit brain, even dreaming I live inside a tree. I did always want to live in a tree house, actually. At one stage I fantasized about that, till my half-sister correctly pointed out, what would you do for electricity? How would you power an electric blanket? You'd die with your lungs up a tree. It's true, I would have died too. But I guess it was wanting to return to nature and being safe and protected by all the trees. Guess it was that. But yes, anyway, home maintenance woman going nuts because a man was coming to visit her. I do that, you know. I get so excited. In real life, I had this acquaintance, I won't name him, he probably doesn't watch my videos, but I met him. So some of you that know me from Western Drumming will know who I'm talking about. I met him through Western Drumming, and he was, you know, he was also a shaman, a practicing shaman actually. Did some wonderful healing on me. Nothing weird, people are there, nothing sexual, you know, there's a whole group of people there. But anyway, he did come one time to pick up books from me. I gifted him some very beautiful, exquisite, they were worth a lot of money. I don't think that fucking idiot realised how valuable those books were. I should have kept them, I don't know what came over me, but I thought, well, his mother's German, and she'll probably, I don't know his mother from Adam, but I sort of liked him, and I thought, you know, he can have those books. That way it's away from my family have no connection to it. I could have given it to another family member, but I thought, no, fuck it, you know, they don't bother with me, they don't give a shit about me, really, in real terms. And I was right about that, that got borne out over time. So I thought, I'll give it to this man, he can give it to his mother, she's probably elderly and she'll probably enjoy reading the wonderful, some of them were art books, oh they were exquisite. Gave him about 12 books. Anyway, so maybe the dream was throwing up a bit of that memory, me wanting to give a book to this other man who, thinking about it, kind of looks a bit, they have kind of similar features. So maybe it was a composite of all those former male friends that really were interested in me and played me a bit of a merry dance, you understand? The last one for sure played me a merry dance, but a very merry dance in full view of the public at gigs. But anyway, never mind. I don't care about that now actually, because I enjoyed my dancing. I had a lovely time, and but yeah, he pops up in my dreams on occasion still. Anyway, but yes, I was thinking about that. He's kind of a blend of him and that guy I knew from West End Drumming. And in real life, I did give that man 12 German books, and they, as I said, were wonderful books. And then well, we fell out. Oh, that's right. He was fighting about circumcision on his Facebook page, and they all piled on, and they were so anti-Semitic and vicious. It actually wasn't really about the act of circumcision at all. It was just an excuse for them all to be savage and Jew-hating. I don't want anything to do with this man. Then I was a bit upset that I'd given him all those wonderful books, because he sat there and all his friends abused me knowing that I'm a Jew. I was livid beyond belief. Livid. It was a fury that stayed with me for actually a long time. I don't usually stay mad that long, but it was just so very ugly. But anyway, so perhaps that's why I'm trotting up in my subconscious that vignette of a man coming to see me, and then I'm supposed to be giving him a book, but instead he got stung by grandmother's spider, time and fate, in the form of a redback spider, because I had to make it pretty, don't you know? Redback spiders are very pretty spiders. And in real life I do have a few of their little webs around, and sort of, if they pose a threat, I kill them. If they don't, I let them live, depending where they are in the garden and the likelihood of someone actually putting their fingers into them, which is why I was probably dreaming that too. It's a subterranean worry, you know. Anyway, I wasn't going to talk about that dream, and then I did. Funny old Tanya. But yes, the dream ended with me waking up in panic, not knowing if he was going to live or die, and thinking, well, I didn't actually want that outcome for him. I just wanted to give him the parting gift of the book and say goodbye and bon voyage and let go, let love, when he gets stung by a spider. It's very interesting metaphorical analogies there, isn't it? Well, let us continue on with the garden of the gods. Behold, the heavens do open, the gods look down, and the unnatural scene they laugh at is Shakespeare, Coriolanus. I think that's how I decided to pronounce it yesterday. Mr. Crow's here. He's had a swim and he's fluffing. He's a happy birdie. You happy birdie, Mr. Crow? Good boy. Right, that's all that's left to us. Mama's sitting here with the crows. And Kermie and Bo, of course. You're very quiet. You're being very quiet, my handsome boys. I took them out in the garden yesterday afternoon for a couple of hours, hour and a half or so. I'll probably do that again when it cools down a bit. It's really humid. It looks like we're going to get storms or rain later. It is what it is, people of Earth. Right, sorry, I'm, meandering. Here we go, let us begin. The island lay bent like a misshapen bow, its two tips nearly touching the Greek and Albanian coastlines, and the blue waters of the Ionian Sea were caught in its curve like a blue lake. Outside our villa was a wide flag-stoned veranda, roofed with an ancient vine from which the great green clusters of grapes hung like chandeliers. From here one looked out over the sunken garden, full of tangerine trees, and the silver-green olive groves, to the sea, blue and smooth as a flower petal. I would love to go there to Greece, or I want to go to Cyprus and see the Oracle of Delphi. I would love to see all those wonderful places. Mustn't think about it. I'll be able to see them all when I transition this body, or if I remember, I'll send my soul to all the places I always wanted to see, and it'll be a different vibe, I guess, because I won't have a body, but I'll be able to send myself there in a nanosecond of thought. Where shall we go today? Where shall we go today, Tanya? And I'll be like, L'Arc de Triomphe, the Paris Catacombs, the Eiffel Tower, the Stonehenge, the Giant's Causeway in Ireland, the Hill of Tara, the Parthenon in Greece. Where else can we go, people? Machu Picchu, Sardinia, where the giants were or are. My psychiatrist has been to Sardinia. He's been to Italy too. He's a lucky man. No, luck has nothing to do with it. He works hard and acquires great wealth by his own skills and abilities and talents. Machu Picchu, Teotihuacan in Mexico, the Gaza Plateau. I want to go in a boat and cruise down the Nile River and just imagine myself seeing all the things that Cleopatra used to see, although I guess the river's changed in all these millennia. Certain tributaries and things would be gone. But just imagine it all, the splendor of ancient Egypt. I could go to New York City. I could go to Los Angeles and San Francisco. I could go all across Europe and see all the magical places there that I've always wanted to see. All done in a nanosecond. Well, it's not quite the same as sitting in an outdoor cafe and eating the wonderful food and smelling the wonderful aromas. Some of them not so wonderful if people are hot and sweaty in summer. Might actually be a good thing that I lose smell-o-vision. But anyway, what will be will be. Que sera, sera. In fine weather, we always had our meals on the veranda at the rickety marble-topped table, and it was here that all the major family decisions were taken. It was at breakfast that there was liable to be more acrimony and dissension, for it was then that letters, if any, were read and plans for the day made, remade, and discarded. It was during these early morning sessions that the family fortunes were organised, albeit haphazardly, so that a simple request for an omelette might end in a 3-month camping expedition to a remote beach, as had happened on one occasion. So when we assembled in the brittle morning light, we were never quite sure how the day was going to get on its feet. I like that though. Spontaneity. I'm a bit spontaneous. If I were extremely wealthy, I'd be just, let's go to London today. Let's seek out some obscure little village somewhere in England and have a beer and a pie and something really traditionally, just for the shits and giggles of it. To begin with, one had to step warily, for tempers were fragile. But gradually, under the influence of tea, coffee, toast, homemade marmalade, eggs, and bowls of fruit, a lessening of the early morning tension would be felt, and a more benign atmosphere begin to permeate the veranda. The morning that heralded the arrival of the Count among us was no different from any other. We had all reached the final cup of coffee stage, and each was busy with his own thoughts. Margot, my sister, her blonde hair done up in a bandana, was musing over 2 pattern books, humming gaily but tunelessly to herself. Hi, Bo. Cammy. Hello. Are you alive over there? Barely, Mama too. Leslie had finished his coffee and produced a small automatic pistol from his pocket, dismantled it, and was absent-mindedly cleaning it with his handkerchief. My mother was perusing the pages of a cookery book in pursuit of a recipe for lunch, her lips moving soundlessly, occasionally breaking off to stare into space while she tried to remember if she had the necessary ingredients. Larry, clad in a multicoloured dressing gown, was eating cherries with one hand and reading his mail with the other. I was busy feeding my latest acquisition, a young jackdaw who was such a singularly slow eater that I had christened him Gladstone, having been told that statesman always chewed everything several hundred times. Seems a bit excessive, but it's supposed to be very good for you if you chew very slowly, at least 20 or 30 times. It's better for your digestion. It's probably why I'm fat. I gulp my food down far too quickly, like pelican on acid. It's kind of a mania too, the way I eat. I guess it's a bad habit I caught from my father, or some twerk. We'll stick with twerk of the brain. Galloping gourmand with gusto. I nicknamed my beautiful foster cat Socks the Galloping Gourmand, but he and I were simpatico in many things. We loved our food and our creature comforts, we did. He was a good boy, very good cat. Except when he brought rats home as a present for me. That was creepy as fuck, but he didn't look at it that way. Anyway. I was busy feeding my latest we read that part, sorry. Chewing several thousand times. Right, several hundred times. While waiting for him to digest each mouthful, I stared down the hill at the beckoning sea and planned my day. Should I take my donkey Sally and make a trip to the high olive groves in the centre of the island to try to catch the agamas that lived on the glittering gypsum cliffs, where they basked in the sun, tantalising me by wagging their yellow heads and puffing out their orange throats? Or should I go down to the small lake in the valley behind the villa, where the dragonfly larvae should be hatching? Or should I perhaps, happiest thought of all, take my latest acquisition, my boat, on a major sea trip? You sleepy birdie boys. Bo's asleep and Cammy's asleep. Oh my goodness. In spring, the almost enclosed sheet of water that separated Corfu from the mainland would be a pale and delicate blue. Then, as spring settled into hot, crackling summer, It seemed to stain the still sea a deeper and more unreal colour than in some lights was like the violet blue of a rainbow, a blue that faded to a rich jade green in the shallows. In the evening, when the sun sank, it was as if it were drawing a brush across the sea's surface, streaking and blurring it to purples smudged with gold, silver, tangerine, and pale pink. Sounds beautiful. To look at this placid, landlocked sea in summer, it seemed mild-mannered, a blue meadow that breathed gently and evenly along the shoreline. It was difficult to believe that it could be fierce, but even on a still summer's day, somewhere in the eroded hills of the mainland, a hot, fierce wind would suddenly be born and leap, screaming at the island, turning the sea so dark it was almost black, combing each wave crest into a sheaf of white froth, and urging and harrying them like a herd of panic-stricken blue horses, until they crashed exhausted on the shore and died in a hissing shroud of foam. And in winter, under an iron grey sky, the sea would lift sullen muscles of almost colourless waves, ice cold and unfriendly, veined here and there with mud and debris that the winter rains swept out of the valleys and into the bay. To me, this blue kingdom was a treasure house of strange beasts, which I longed to collect and observe. At first it was frustrating, for I could only peck along the shoreline like some forlorn seabird, capturing the small fry in the shallows, and occasionally being tantalized by something mysterious and wonderful cast upon the shore. But then I got my boat, the good ship Bootle Bum Trinket, and the whole of this kingdom was opened up for me, from the golden red castles of rock and their deep pools and underwater caves in the north, to the long, glittering, white sand dunes lying like snowdrifts in the south. I feel like I'm being called to go to the art gallery again today. I can hear the energy calling. But it was such a emotionally fraught kind of experience last time. I'm not in a hurry to go back, quite frankly. It's amazing though what I pick up on other people's energies. In this case, I think it's my daughter. Well, I've got no need to go back there unless she asks me to come to see her, because I've just seen the latest exhibition and, it was okay, but nothing too, nothing too outstandingly amazing. I did enjoy the table that was covered in all the geometric shapes though, like all sorts of random clutter, but looked like a mini city the way it was all laid out actually. There were a few interesting things, but I've seen it now. Anyway, if my daughter wants me to come and see her or wants contact with me, she's 40 years old. She's got the power of the telephone, the mobile phone. She can reach out to me in ordinary reality instead of sending telepathic waves across the ether. Just saying. Anyway, I decided on the sea trip, and so intent was I on planning it that I had quite forgotten Gladstone, who was wheezing at me with the breathless indignation of an asthmatic in a fog. That's very indignant indeed, an asthmatic in a fog. Ask me how I know. If you must keep that harmonium covered with feathers, said Larry, glancing up irritably, you might at least teach it to sing properly. He was obviously not in the mood to receive a lecture on the jackdaw's singing abilities. So I kept quiet and shut Gladstone up with a mammoth mouthful of food. Marco's sending Count Rosignon for a couple of days, Larry said casually to Mother. Who's he? Asked Mother. I don't know, said Larry. Mother straightened her glasses and looked at him. What do you mean you don't know? She asked. What I say, said Larry. I don't know. I've never met him. Well, who's Marco? I don't know. I've never met him either. He's a good artist, though. Larry, dear, you can't start inviting people you don't know to stay, said Mother. It's bad enough entertaining the ones you do know without starting on the ones you don't. What's knowing them got to do with it? Asked Larry, puzzled. Well, if you know them, at least they know what to expect, Mother pointed out. Expect? Said Larry coldly. You think I was inviting them to stay in a ghetto or something the way you go on? No, dear, I don't mean that, said Mother. But it's just that this house so seldom seems normal. I do try, but we don't seem able to live like other people somehow. I think she does remarkably well, catering for all the odds and sods and odd bods and unknown people just turning up in her lap, almost literally. I think she manages it all very, very well. I'd be telling them all to fuck off, Scoos, especially if they behaved badly or rudely. That's why I'm alone, isn't it? Oh, smallest violin. Rather be alone and surrounded by assholes and rude and ignorant people. Anyway. Well, if they come to stay here, they must put up with us, said Larry. Anyway, you can't blame me. I didn't invite him. Marco's sending him. But that's what I mean, said Mother. Complete strangers sending complete strangers to us, as if we were in a hotel or something. Trouble with you is you're antisocial, said Larry. And so would you be if you had to do the cooking, said Mother indignantly. It's enough to make one want to be a hermit. Well, as soon as the Count's been, you can be a hermit if you want to. No one's stopping you. It's going to be a very long chapter, people will. Dear Goddess. A lot of chance I get to be a hermit, with you inviting streams of people to stay. Of course you can if you organise yourself, said Larry. Leslie will build you a cave down in the olive groves. You can get Margot to stitch a few of Jerry's less smelly animal skins together. Collect a pot of blackberries and there you are. I can bring people down to see you. This is my mother, I shall say. She has deserted us to become a hermit. As a hermit, it's actually not so bad. Blackberries notwithstanding. Mother glared at her. Really, Larry, you do make me cross sometimes, she said. I'm going down to see Leonora's baby, said Margot. Is there anything you want from the village? Oh, yes, said Larry. That reminds me. Leonora's asked me to be a godparent to the brat. Leonora was our maid Lugarezia's daughter, who used to come up to the house and help us when we had a party, and who, because of her sparkling good looks, was a great favourite of Larry's. You? A godfather? Said Margot in astonishment. I thought godfathers were supposed to be pure and religious things. Someone forgot to give that memo to my paedophile godfather too. Oops! How nice of her, said Mother doubtfully. But it's a bit odd, isn't it? Not half so odd as it would be if she asked him to be father, said Leslie. Leslie, dear, don't say things like that in front of Jerry, even in fun, said Mother. Are you going to accept Larry? Yes. Why shouldn't the poor little thing have the benefit of my guidance? Ha! Said Margot derisively. Well, I shall tell Leonora that if she thinks you're going to be pure and religious, she's trying to make a pig's poke out of a sow's ear. If you can translate that into Greek, you're welcome to tell her, said Larry. My Greek's just as good as yours, replied Margot belligerently. Now, dears, don't quarrel, said Mother. I do wish you wouldn't clean your guns with your handkerchief, Leslie. The oil is impossible to get out. Well, I've got to clean them with something, said Leslie aggrievedly. At this point I told Mother I was going to spend the day exploring the coast, and could I have a picnic? Yes, dear, she said absently. And tell Lugarezia to organise something for you. But do be careful, dear, and don't go into very deep water. Don't catch a chill, and watch out for the sharks. To Mother, every sea, no matter how shallow or benign, was an evil and tumultuous body of water, full of tidal waves, water spouts, typhoons, and whirlpools, inhabited entirely by giant octopus and squids and savage saber-toothed sharks, all of whom had the killing and eating of one or other of her progeny as their main objective in life. Assuring her that I would take great care, I hurried off to the kitchen, collected the food for myself and my animals, assembled my collecting equipment, whistled the dogs, and set off, I wake you up, little boy, and set off down the hill to the jetty where my boat was moored. Right, excuse me a little moment. I'll be back shortly. I'll leave you facing the birdie boys so you can tell me what they were doing while I was gone. You be good now. You be good little birdies now. Right, the Mama Tea is back. The Bootle Bum Trinket, being Leslie's first effort in boat building, was almost circular and flat-bottomed, so that, with her attractive colour scheme of orange and white stripes, she looked not unlike an ornate celluloid duck. She was a friendly, stalwart craft, but owing to her shape and her lack of keel, she became very flustered in anything like a heavy sea, and would threaten to turn upside down and proceed that way, a thing she was prone to do in moments of stress. When I went on any long expeditions in her, I always took plenty of food and water in case we were blown off course and shipwrecked, which won't help them if they get capsized, will it? Anyway, and I hugged the coastline as much as possible so that I could make a dash for safety should the Bootle bum trinket be assaulted by a sudden sirocco. Owing to my boat's shape, she could not wear a tall mast without turning over, and her pocket handkerchief-sized sail could only garner and harvest the tiniest cupfuls of wind. Thus, for the most part, she was propelled from point to point with oars. When we had a full crew on board, 3 dogs, an owl and sometimes a pigeon, and were carrying a full cargo, some 24 containers full of seawater and specimens, she was a back-aching load to push through the water. Roger was a fine dog to take to sea, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. He also took a deep and intelligent interest in marine life and would lie for hours, ears pricked, watching the strange convolutions of the brittle starfish in a collecting bottle. Whittle and Puke, on the other hand, were not sea dogs and were really most at home tracking down some not too fierce quarry in the myrtle groves. When they came to sea, they tried to be helpful but rarely succeeded, and in a crisis would start howling or jumping overboard or, if thirsty, drinking seawater and then vomiting over your feet just as you were doing a tricky bit of navigation. I could never really tell if Ulysses, my Scots owl, liked sea trips. He would sit dutifully wherever I placed him, his eyes half closed, wings pulled in, looking like one of the more malevolent carvings of Oriental deities. My pigeon, Quilp, he was the son of my original pigeon, Quasimodo, adored boating. He would take over the Bootle bum trinket's minute foredeck and carry on as though it were the promenade deck of the Queen Mary. He would pace up and down, pausing to do a quick waltz occasionally, and with pouting chest would give a contralto concert, looking strangely like a large opera singer on a sea voyage. Only if the weather became inclement would he get nervous, and would then fly down and nestle in the captain's lap for solace. On this particular day, I had to sight, oh, ouch, getting terrible pain, twinging pains in my arthritic finger, just from this joint to here, like an electrical shock, zing, zing, zing. 144th fastest gun in the West. Not. I probably wouldn't even make that much. Oh, but it actually does look sore between my sore wrist and hand and now my forefinger. Maybe that's why I was dreaming of my former friend's forefinger poking into the bole of a tree. I was probably picking up pain from my own forefinger when I was sleeping. Dear Goddess, what a mind! What a mind, people of Earth! On this particular day, I had decided to pay a visit to a small bay, one of which was formed by a tiny island surrounded by reefs, in which there dwelled a host of fascinating creatures. My particular quarry was a peacock blenny, which I knew lived in profusion in that shallow water. Blennies are curious-looking fish with elongated bodies, some 4 inches long, shaped rather like an eel. With their pop eyes and thick lips, they are vaguely reminiscent of a hippopotamus. In the breeding season, the males became most colourful, with a dark spot behind the eyes, edged with sky blue, a dull orange hump-like crest on the head, and a darkish body covered with ultramarine or violet spots. The throat was pale sea green with darkish stripes on it. In contrast, the females were light olive with pale blue spots and leaf green fins. Excuse me. Pardon me. I'm a bit of a mess this morning. What can I say? It's hot. Summer's nearly over. Thank the goddess for that. I was anxious to capture some of these colourful little fish since it was their breeding season, and I was hoping to establish a colony of them in one of my aquariums so that I could watch their courtship. After half an hour's stiff rowing, we reached the bay, which was rimmed with silvery olive groves and great golden tangles of broom that sent its heavy musky scent out over the still, clear waters. I anchored the Bootle Bum Trinket in 2 feet of water near the reef, and then, taking off my clothes and armed with my butterfly net and a wide-mouthed jar, I stepped into the gin-clear sea that was as warm as a bath. Everywhere there was such a profusion of life that it required stern concentration not to be diverted from one's task. Here the sea slugs, like huge warty brown sausages, lay in battalions among the multicoloured weeds. On the rocks were the dark purple, black pincushions of the sea urchins, their spines turning to and fro like compass needles. Here and there, stuck to the rocks like enlarged woodlice, were the chitons. Chitons or chitons? 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 Chitons, perhaps. I can't check because I have to film on my iPhone now. I'll have to check that later. And the brightly freckled top shells, moving about, each containing either its rightful owner or else a usurper in the shape of a red-faced, scarlet-clawed hermit crab. A small weed-covered rock would suddenly walk away from under your foot, revealing itself as a spider crab, with his back a neatly planted garden of weeds to camouflage him from his enemies. Yes, there's definitely a shift in the weather. I can really feel it. It doesn't look that bad, but it's a bit grey and murky over in the west. So there is that. More southwest than west. Soon I came to the area of the bay that I knew the Blennies favoured. It was not long before I spotted a fine male, brilliant and almost iridescent in his courting outfit of many colours. Cautiously, I edged my net towards him, and he retreated suspiciously, gulping at me with his pouting lips. Somewhat like that. I made a sudden sweep with the net, but he was too wary and avoided it with ease. Several times I tried and failed, and after each attempt he retreated a little further. Finally, tiring of my attentions, he flipped off and took refuge in his home, which was the broken half of a terracotta pot of the sort that fishermen put down. Ow! There goes that finger again. That fishermen put down to trap unwary octopuses in. Although he was under the impression he had reached safety, it was in fact his undoing, for I simply scooped him up, pot and all, in my net, and then transferred him and his home to one of the bigger containers in the boat. Flushed with success, I continued my hunting, and by lunchtime had caught 2 great green wives for my blenny, as well as a baby cuttlefish and an interesting species of starfish, which I had not seen previously. Where did that magpie get that hunk of meat from that he's got in his beak? Or has he killed something? He's eating it. It's astonishing, isn't it? Must be some dead creature out there, because it's a big hunk of juicy bright red flesh. Now the crow's in on it too. Maybe the crow killed a cane toad, which would be a good thing. I've stopped killing them because I find it repulsive. I really hate it. So I'm leaving it up to the natural order of things. Let the crows take care of business for me. But it might not be a cane toad, it might be a bird or something. I should go out and check, shouldn't I? Never mind. They know how to feed themselves, and the prime directive is non-interference, people of Earth. It's difficult sometimes though, the non-interference. The sun was now blistering hot, and most of the sea life had disappeared under rocks to lurk in the shade. I went on shore to sit under the olive trees and eat my lunch. The air was heavy with the scent of broom and full of the zinging cries of cicadas. As I ate, I watched a huge dragon green lizard with bright blue eye markings along his body carefully stalk and catch a black and white striped swallowtail butterfly. Yes, I'm going to have to cut this video in half, people of Earth. It's going to be a long chapter. We'll carry on for now, my loves. We'll carry on for now. No mean feat, since swallowtails rarely sit still for long, and their flight is erratic and unpredictable. Moreover, the lizard caught the butterfly on the wing, leaping some 16 inches off the ground to do so. Presently, having finished my lunch, I loaded up the boat and, getting my canine crew on board, began to row home so that I could settle my blennies in their aquariums. Reaching the villa, I placed the male blenny together with his pot in the centre of the larger of my aquariums, and then carefully introduced the two females. Although I watched them for the rest of the afternoon, they did nothing spectacular. The male merely lay, gulping and pouting, in the entrance of his pot, while the females gulped and pouted with equal zest at either end of the aquarium. The following morning when I got up, I found to my intense annoyance that the blennies must have been active at dawn, for a number of eggs had been laid inside on the roof of the pot. Which female was responsible for this I did not know, but the male was a very protective and resolute father, attacking my fingers ferociously when I picked up the pot to look at the eggs. Determined not to miss any of the drama, I rushed to get my breakfast and ate it squatting in front of the aquarium, my gaze fixed on the blennies. The family, who had hitherto regarded fish as the least of potential troublemakers among my pets, began to have doubts about the blennies, for as the morning wore on, I would importune each passing member of the household to bring me an orange or a drink of water, or to sharpen my pencil for me, for I was whiling away the time drawing the blennies in my diary. My lunch was served at the aquarium, and as the long hot afternoon wore on, I began to feel sleepy. The dogs, long since bored with a vigil they could not understand, had gone off into the olive groves and left me and the blennies to our own devices. The male blenny was deep in his pot, scarcely visible. One of the females had wedged herself behind some small rocks, while the other sat gulping on the sand. Occupying the aquarium with the fish were two small spider crabs, each encrusted with weeds, and one wearing a small pink sea anemone like a rakish bonnet on his head. It was this crab who really precipitated the romance of the blennies. He was wandering about the floor of the aquarium, delicately popping bits of debris into his mouth with his claws, like a finicky spinster eating cucumber sandwiches. When he happened to wander up to the entrance of the pot, immediately the male, actually I could do with that right now, a nice cucumber sandwich. Not quite a spinster, but a very, very cheerful divorcee. Babies. The spinster was my nickname at Wellington Girls College. So I made a point of getting married before all of them, which was the worst possible thing I could have done to myself. So ultimately, Those bitches were right. Should have just stayed a spinster. And here we are, all these decades later. Immediately the male Blenny emerged, glowing with iridescent colours ready for battle. He swooped down onto the spider crab and bit at it viciously, time after time. "You're gonna get laid soon," someone yelled out. "I don't think so, someone." Waiting for the one, a good, kind, noble, honouring, loyal and faithful man to me, not me and every bloody other female that drags her pussy in front of him. By all the gods. The crab, after a few ineffectual attempts to ward off the fish with its claws, meekly turned tail and scuttled off. This left the Blenny glowing virtuously as the victor, and he sat just outside his pot, looking smug. Dear goddess. Sex is really just a social construct, just a cosplay of predator and prey. The battle of the sexes. It's been going on for millennia, people of Earth. Shouldn't have to be that way though, should it? Should be real loves that are kind and sweet and honouring. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, and yet again, not. Well, I'm okay staying on my own. It's safer and saner that way. Trust me on that one. Now a very unexpected thing happened. The female on the sand had had her attention attracted by the fight with the crab, and now she swam over and stopped some 4 or 5 inches away from the male. At the sight of her, he became very excited and his colouring seemed to glow all the more. Then suddenly he attacked the female. He dashed at her and bit at her head, at the same time curving his body like a bow and giving her blows with his tail, which is a similar courtship display of the Siamese fighting fish, or betters, something they call them, betters, better, forgotten what the Latin name is. Anyway, very unpleasant mating. They've actually been known to kill the female in the course of mating, which is kind of pointless. How are you supposed to get progeny if you kill your female? Same could be said for human men as well. Fucking dickheads. But anyway, we won't anthropomorphise or androgynize or otherwise mise the demise of Western civilization. We'll carry on with the story. Dear goddess. I watched this behaviour in amazement until I realised that throughout this beating and buffeting, the female was completely passive and made no attempt at retaliation. What I was witnessing was not an unprovoked attack, but a belligerent courtship display. As I watched, I saw that with slaps from his tail and bites at the female's head, the male Blenny was in fact herding her towards his pot as a sheepdog herds sheep. Realising that once they entered the pot, I should lose sight of them, I dashed into the house and came back with an instrument I normally used for examining birds' nests, It was a bamboo pole with a small mirror set at an angle on the end. If there was a bird's nest out of reach, you could use the mirror as a periscope to enable you to examine the eggs or fledglings. Now I used it in the same way, but upside down. By the time I got back, the blennies were disappearing into the pot. With great caution, so as not to disturb them, I lowered the mirror on the bamboo into the water and manoeuvred it until it was at the entrance of the pot. When I had jiggled it into position, I found I not only got a good view of the interior of the pot, but that the sunlight reflected off the mirror and lit up the inside beautifully. To begin with, the two fish stayed close together. There was a lot of fin waving, but nothing much else. The male's attacks on the female ceased. Now she was safely in the pot, and he seemed more conciliatory towards her. After about 10 minutes, the female moved from the position alongside her and proceeded to lay a small cluster of transparent eggs, which was stuck to the smooth side of the pot like frog spawn. This done, she moved, and the male took up his position over the eggs. Unfortunately, the female got between me and him, so I could not see him actually fertilize the eggs, but it was obvious that that was what he was doing. Then the female, feeling that her part of the procedure was over, swam out of the pot and across the aquarium, displaying no further interest in the eggs. The male, however, spent some time fussing around them and came to lay in the mouth of the pot, on guard. I waited eagerly for the baby blennies to appear, but there must have been something wrong with the aeration of the water, for only 2 of the eggs hatched. One of the diminutive babies was, to my horror, eaten by his own mother, before my eyes. Not wishing to have a double case of infanticide on my conscience and lacking aquarium space, I put the second baby in a jar and rowed down the coast to the bay where I had caught his parents. Here I released him with my blessing in the clear tepid water ringed with golden broom, where I hoped that he would rear many multicoloured offspring of his own. More likely just ended up prey in the open sea, but there's a sweet, heartfelt intention behind it. 3 days later, the Count appeared. He was tall and slender, with tightly curled hair as golden as a silkworm cocoon, shining with oil, a delicately curled moustache of a similar hue, and slightly protuberant eyes of a pale and unpleasant green. Hypothyroidism? One can never tell, can one? He alarmed Mother by arriving with a huge wardrobe trunk, and she was convinced that he had come to stay for the summer. But we soon found that the Count found himself so attractive he felt it necessary to change his clothes about 8 times a day to do justice to himself. His clothes were such elegant confections beautifully hand-stitched and of such exquisite materials. The man's got style. That Margot was torn between envy at his wardrobe and disgust at his effeminacy. Combined with this narcissistic preoccupation with himself, the Count had other equally objectionable characteristics. Just see how many more pages. He drenched himself in a scent so thick that it was almost visible, and he had only to spend a second in a room to permeate the whole atmosphere, while the cushions he leaned against and the chairs he sat in reeked for days afterwards. His English was limited, but this did not prevent him from expounding on any subject with a sort of sneering dogmatism that made everyone's hackles rise. His philosophy, if any, could be summed up in the phrase, "We do it better in France," which he used repeatedly about everything. He had such a thoroughly Gallic interest in the edibility we do it better in France edibility of everything with which he came in contact, that one could have been pardoned for thinking him the reincarnation of a goat. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to break it there. It goes on about his arrival, but we'll just stop there. I'm very tired. I'm fading. The mama tea is fading fast. Where the hell is that pencil? There. Come to me, pencil. You wish to come to me? Right. A man who eats like a goat. My father. My ex-husband. I would say myself having a prodigious appetite, but there's quite a few foods that I refuse to eat. So, not really a goat in that regard. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that so far. I'll come back tomorrow to finish off chapter 3, The Garden of the Gods. Hopefully I'll have a bit more energy and motivation. I made a fabulous cheesecake, but cheesecake, actually the cheese component of the cake, can cause me to have anxiety, panic disorders, gut disturbances, severe fatigue. My daughter Crystal used to call it the doomies. She said, "You're lactose intolerant, mother. When are you going to accept it?" But sometimes, it doesn't affect me too badly and I actually hold the food down, and others it's a avalanche of purgative proportions. So I enjoyed every mouthful, and hopefully my body extricated something of value out of it, but I really am feeling drained people of it. So I mainly just made it because I was worried about not having enough food and not having enough money, and it was almost a defiance and a muse. inspired creativity. It just came over like a frenzy. I have to make this cheesecake. I have to make it now. I've frozen most of it down though. This time I was good, because last time I ate the entire cake within 3 days, and hence 95.5 kilos. So I've frozen most of it down, and I'll just take out a piece at a time when I have a craving for cheesecake, and just leave it there in the freezer. I think that's the best way to be. I've eaten quite a lot of it, actually, about half of it, so there is that. And I'm actually hungry again. I've got this roiling hunger all the time. I'm sure that's anxiety based too. It's like from the bowels of my stomach, this like a hand grabbing, calling for food. I was like that as a baby too. It's intense. By the gods. I have to kind of quell that primal fierce hunger, because I'll just keep getting fatter and fatter. I'm not on any psych meds that I ballooned out to 103 kilos, but so there's no reason for it except some kind of metabolic disorder and being over 60. I have read that postmenopausal women are prone to getting fatter. Well, I don't know what I'm going to do about that. Perhaps I need some kind of vitamin or mineral that will bring everything back into harmonic resonance again. Or I'll have to reprogram my brain and tell myself I am healthy, I am wealthy, I'm truly greatly loved in noble, honouring, loyal, faithful ways. I'm safe. I don't need to armour up with excess weight. I'm loved by the gods and the ancestors that love me, and the spirits and the angels, and a few rare and precious humans out there in the world. I don't need to fatten up. I really don't. Anyway, I'll have to reprogram myself somehow. Every day remind myself I'm safe, I'm cared for, I'm protected, I'm healthy. Bye for now, people of Earth. Blessed be. From my sacred space at Titania's realm to yours, wherever you are on the spiralling blue marble. Take good care, be of good cheer, and remember, as always, to never ever let the bastards grind you down, even when it's 1,000 million trillion cells in your old body craving food. It's not rational, and it must be quelled. Bye for now.